and welcome to Big Little Lessons. I'm Jenny, joined as always by my co-host and teaching partner, Christine. Together, we share stories and insights from our years in the kindergarten classroom, where the smallest learners teach us the biggest lessons.
So today we're going to touch on a very important topic, kindergarten readiness. Is your child ready for kindergarten? How do you know? This is a question that comes up every single year.
Is the child ready for kindergarten?
And it's exciting, but it's also can be a little worrisome for parents.
Yes. So today we're unpacking what readiness really means. We will address the whole child, which means looking at the child socially, emotionally, academically, and physically.
Right. And so, over the years, Jenny, how many years have we been teaching together? Like 100?
It feels like one. Go ahead.
We've really sort of grown our philosophy together, what it means to be a kindergarten teacher, what it means to be a student in kindergarten, teaching 5- and 6-year-olds. And kindergarten readiness is something that we have a lot of passion around because we feel like we are advocating for children, right?
Yes.
We want what's best for them.
And we really want to set them up for success. The goal is always to challenge our students, but not crush them, and finding that balance. If they're not truly ready for kindergarten, it's very painful to watch a child feel crushed during a school day. It's a very long day. I think people need to think about a time when maybe you were not really ready for something and that feeling of just like, I don't understand what's going on. We feel like today is a very important topic.
It is an important topic, and we also have a lot to say on the matter. So understanding that there's 4 components that you have to observe to see if a child is truly ready for their first year: social, emotional, academic, and physical. Right?
And I think they're all important, but looking at the beginning of kindergarten, the middle of kindergarten, and the end of kindergarten, those are not equal components. They shift. So at the beginning of the year, what would you say?
I would say emotionally and socially and physically, academics are not something we even really, it's a part of our curriculum, but we're very concerned about their emotionality, their physical growth, and socially how they're interacting with one another.
Absolutely. I remember we had this in a teaching workshop. If you think about the stovetop and you have 4 burners, right? Sometimes your sauce, say you're making an Italian meal, you have a marinara sauce. Sometimes you put that in the back burner and let it simmer. So you kind of think of that as simmering the academics, and bringing to the forefront of your stovetop is the social and emotional first. Get that laid down in all the foundations of the social and emotional component at the beginning.
And it can be tricky for parents because sometimes a 5-year-old or a turning 5-year-old will know their letter sounds, will actually be able to show beginning signs of reading, will be able to add numbers. So you might have a precocious child, and academically you think, oh, they're ready to go, but they can't play well with others. They can't sit. They can't take turns. They don't have patience. In our opinion, they're not ready.
So let's start at the very beginning. Let's talk a little bit about our earliest memory of elementary school, our ages, because I think that's an interesting thing to look at. So Christine and I are just 2 days apart. We were both born in November of 1966.
Great year.
Yeah, it was a fabulous year. And we're only 2 days apart. And yet in school, I was a year ahead of her.
Right.
So that makes a big difference right there.
It does. For me, it didn't start out that way. So I was put on track with you. And then when we talked about our educational journeys, we both moved around schools a lot. So
Yes.
that was tricky. And we both moved countries.
Yes.
So when I moved countries, that's when I got put back. And that was in 6th grade, which was old to be put back.
So I started kindergarten. I wasn't quite 5.
Right.
My birthday's November 28th. I made the cutoff by 2 days. December 1st was the cutoff. So my mom's all, good, have fun, see ya. And you started then too.
It wasn't until later that I got put back. And that's when I really saw, I figured out this is great. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
And I look back, for me, My earliest school memory was being in kindergarten, scared to death. It was going into it felt like 100 kids. It's probably 25. And it was one teacher. It was a public school in New Orleans. She was lovely. The kids were lovely. But I remember so vividly thinking, why does it seem like everybody knows what they're doing and I'm just kind of always behind? And of course, I was only a little over, I wasn't quite 5. I was just so young to be in that class. How about you?
I have those kinds of memories as well, sort of just a little bit of deer in the headlights. Like, and also emotionally, I didn't want to leave my mom.
Me either.
I remember actually hiding under a chair. I think it might have been nursery school, so right before kindergarten, and we didn't all go to nursery school, but I did for a little bit. And I was underneath a chair hiding, and I was like, don't make me go. I'm not ready. I'm not ready, people. Pay attention. Listen to me.
I know. But our parents were ready for us to be out of their hair.
Right.
So we did it.
We did it. And then when I was put back in 6th grade, I felt like I was at the top of my game.
Remind us why.
So I was living in another country. I was living in Spain, and my mother was in Spain. My father was in New York. And when we decided to switch it so that our schooling was in the States and our summers were in Spain, which was so fun, I went to a private school in New York City.
Okay.
Yeah, it was actually a Waldorf school. It was a really beautiful school. And the cutoff was September 1st. So I didn't meet the cutoff. So all along we had been in public school, and the cutoff was December 1st. So when I moved back, it wasn't that they were looking at me saying, this kid's not ready. They were like, your birthday's past the cutoff.
Okay.
So they did me a favor.
They sure did. Especially because you were going into 6th grade and you had done 6th grade in Ibiza.
Right.
Correct?
Yep.
Okay. But they just said that this is our school philosophy.
Right. And if you think about it also, our school cutoff is September 1st.
Yes.
And public school, is December 1st.
Yes.
And even there are other independent schools who have their cutoff date as early as June, which I think is so interesting.
It is. It is.
So there's something to be said about the cutoff date.
And I'm just curious, how did you feel? You said it felt good to be in 6th grade, but when you were given the news, I know you just finished 6th grade in Ibiza, but you're going to go to 6th grade in New York. How did you take that initially?
The good news is when I was in Ibiza, I was in a British school and it wasn't grades. It wasn't called anything. I can't even remember, but it was, so I didn't really know what grade I was given to be.
My name is Christine. I'm not sure what grade I'm in.
But so yeah, it didn't feel, I think actually that's not true. For a moment, I thought, wow, I'm not going to be the youngest anymore. I'm going to be the oldest.
Ooh.
That's interesting,
yes. Right? Yes, I think that is interesting.
And I felt really cool in 6th grade being older, and I felt smart.
That's fantastic. It's good to know for anyone who's on the cusp of should I or should I not have my child have the gift of time, is what we call it. Let's go ahead and unpack some of those 4 components that we talked about.
Right.
And what does that mean?
Let's do that. It was the early 70s, and the expectations of students entering in kindergarten are way different now than they were.
Yes.
And we were still playing in kindergarten. There was half-day kindergarten. There was napping in kindergarten.
Yes. Actually, when you think back when we were in kindergarten, it was very little academics. It was much more about the social and emotional foundation because like you've said, I never went to preschool. Preschool just wasn't the big thing back then.
It's called nursery school. I love that.
Nursery school. Yes. So it's so different. And nowadays, we've had parents who will say, but when I was in kindergarten, it's like, I know your experience is not your child's experience.
Right.
So understand it's a different generation, a different time, different challenges, different pros and cons.
Right. So observing, learning, questioning current philosophy, all of those things are super key, right? So let's break down those components.
Okay.
So the first component is the big one, social readiness. When my children went to preschool, we had this incredible preschool director who always said, if students are not, socially ready, if their bodies are not settled, if they've not fulfilled that developmental part of who they are, they can't take in information. Yeah. So what does social readiness look like? Jenny.
Okay, so we're going to be reading a list, kind of unpack it just a little bit.
Okay, and we'll
moving
talk
on.
about it.
So the list that we've created for social readiness is that they play cooperatively with their peers. They know how to take turn. They're learning how to share.
Yeah.
They engage in group activities and they follow the group rules. They express their needs and feelings appropriately, right? So we're not expecting perfection, but just they can say, I don't like this, or this is fun.
Or what they need, what they want. Yep.
They can work independently and also as a group.
Right. And obviously, independence is something huge that we focus on in kindergarten, but we want to see signs of independence.
Yes, that's such a big word, independent. Respond appropriately to adult guidance or redirection, and understand that the adult is on their side and that they're guiding them, they're coaching them. Demonstrating basic conflict resolution skills, that they can say, expressing again their feelings and how to resolve something. And then make eye contact and use polite greetings.
Yeah.
Can they say, good morning?
So I think that obviously these are signs of readiness, but they're also so important in our curriculum. So we continue to develop all of the social readiness and just take it from where they are and continue to develop it. So I think that that's important.
And as kindergarten teachers, we understand that they're young and they're at a new school. And we're not expecting them to have all these things down perfectly. In fact, none of us do. And we're constantly working on it. It's a lifelong journey.
But there's a level of readiness. So the next component is emotional readiness, and separation is a huge one. When students start preschool, that's something that they really work hard on, is separation. But oftentimes they arrive at kindergarten and they haven't sorted it out yet. So being able to separate from your caregiver and with minimal duress, so without the child being too stressed out or the parent being too stressed out. Managing emotions with growing independence. Demonstrating self-control, so waiting turns, following directions. And I think these kind of go hand in hand also with social.
Yep.
Being able to handle disappointment. No means no.
We love that one.
And frustration, so handling their disappointment and their frustrations. Showing curiosity and willingness to try new things. Displaying confidence in completing tasks. Understanding and talks about feelings of themselves and of others.
Yes.
Right.
The emotional readiness is hugely important. And I do want to throw a shout out to all preschool teachers because they work so closely with these young children. And the preschool teachers, well, we noticed that a lot when we were all home, and the students in kindergarten that did not have preschool experience, we saw it. Preschool teachers are angels. That's all I'm going to say.
I completely agree. All of the readiness that they work on, building the social and emotional is so critical. That's why academics are not for preschool. I mean, they can be, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is the social and the emotional.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. So then another huge component is the physical readiness. There's fine motor and gross motor. So we'll start with fine motor. Using crayons, pencils, scissors with control, and working on the correct grip right away, which is easier said than done. Holding, with the right grip. And it's once a child kind of has that grip, it's hard to change. So
even when they get to kindergarten and they're holding it in a certain way that's going to eventually be hard on their hand.
Their wrists and their shoulder. It's so important. So that's a whole nother topic. We'll work with an OT. We'll have an OT on.
We need help with that one.
Can they button, zip, and manipulate clothing fasteners? And that builds their confidence and independence. Right. So keep working on that. And glues and paste with some precision. So those are the fine motor skills.
Right.
How about the gross motor?
So the fine motor, think about your hands, right? And the gross motor, I think about the body. So being able to run, to jump, to climb, to balance with some coordination, being able to throw, catch, and kick a ball, participating in movement activities like dancing or exercises, and also having the stamina to engage in active play. So on the playground, being able to play a game for an extended amount of time or just engage with peers, with their bodies.
Fine motors with your hands, gross motor with your body. It's a great way to remember that. And both are so important. All right. And then we get to the academics readiness with language and literacy, recognizing and naming most letters, upper and lowercase, understanding that print carries meaning. They can rhyme and identify beginning sounds, recognizes their name in print and may attempt to write it, and they can listen to stories and retell the key events.
So I think also it's important to understand that, within the development of being 5 and 6, this is a continuum, right? So
Yes.
some students are just at the very beginning and understanding that the alphabet has letters and they're learning, but as we teach it, they learn it, right? So we know they're ready.
Yes.
We know that they can handle it. There's other students they've got this. They are already putting letters together and they know that letters make sounds. And then there's students that we can tell they're not ready because they just don't have interest. They don't understand. They literally don't understand.
If you look at the academics, similar to when your child was learning how to walk, some children start crawling rather early. They're standing up and walking by 9 months. Some kids need to about 18 to 20 months. So it doesn't mean that at the end of the day, by the time they're 2, they're all walking, right? But the same is with the academic readiness. So some kids are putting it together on the earlier side than others, but there are little benchmarks along the way that if a child isn't recognized a letter at a certain time, that might be something to investigate to see how their mind is processing and working on it. But the first part is, is their age matching the development?
Right.
And
I
within
like
range.
that word benchmark.
Mhm.
And we use that word often because it's helpful. Like this is a benchmark and you want to be within the benchmark.
Yes. And that can the range can vary.
Yeah.
So, there's some kids that are reading by kindergarten and some by the end of first grade, but understanding, are the pieces going into place?
So similar to reading, I think math also. So being able to count objects up to 10 or more, recognizing and naming basic shapes and colors, understanding some simple patterns and sorting, understanding concepts like more or less, same and different. So like counting, for example, that's another one that I think parents don't have a total understanding. They're like, well, my child can count to 100, right?
Yes.
So they can count to 100, but then when you put, 10 objects in front of them, can they point to one? Do they have one-to-one correspondence?
Do they understand the relationship
The
between
relationship.
the numbers? So even looking at numbers 1 to 5, what's the relationship between number 1 and number 5? What's the difference? Which one has more? Which one has less?
Exactly.
There's so many layers to math. It's very similar to literacy. You have to build those skills.
And then finally, cognitive general knowledge, right? So being able to follow multi-step directions. And again, they're 5 and 6, so we don't expect it right away, but we build. If they come in and they can't follow 2 steps, it will be challenging for them to build upon
So like
that.
a multi-step might be pick up a yellow crayon and write the first letter of your name.
Right.
If a child is really struggling to follow a 2 to 4 step direction, they may not be ready.
They may not, and that's okay.
Yes.
Being able to attend to tasks for 10 to 15 minutes. So we always say at the beginning of kindergarten, children should not be sitting for longer than their age. So
Yes.
in circle time on the rug at the beginning of kindergarten, they're literally on the rug for 5 to 8 minutes.
If
right?
you're lucky.
If you're lucky. And, being on the rug is different for everyone, what that looks like. But the expectation is that they should be able to sit and attend.
Yes.
And when they're working on a task, they should be able to attend for 10 minutes.
Yes.
And making observations about the world, right? Are they curious?
Yeah.
Are they connecting the dots
Yep.
between what you're, what they're learning and what they want to know?
Yeah. When going over this list, I'm just always amazed that we are looking at children that are, sometimes we're observing children when they're 4, 5, and 6. And you look at it and you think, they weren't even here 6 years ago. I mean, it's incredible.
It's so incredible to think about that.
that these children can do so much. I mean, you just think they're learning before our eyes. And that's has always fascinated me, is to see their little synapses connecting and growing so quickly.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yes. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's wonderful. And there have been times, many times, many, many years, and lots of children that we can think of who really needed what we call the gift of time, because they came to kindergarten, right? And we loved them and they were amazing. But for whatever reason, whether it be one of these 4 components, and it always is, we made a decision with the families to have them come back to kindergarten.
Yes. It's not an easy decision, and it's not one that the parents or teachers take lightly, but it's so important. So let's talk about our students that we had such great success giving them the gift of time.
Right.
So which one do you want to talk
Well, I think,
about?
So I have a Charlie who's coming back to kindergarten again this year, and I'm so excited. This Charlie happens to have an August birthday, and this Charlie is second born and adorable, socially and emotionally, academically okay. So tricky decision. Throughout the year, by the spring, we started to see some big holes.
That's usually when that gap widened.
Friendships became harder. Following directions became harder. So it's the time of the year when the rest of your class is taking off and they're soaring.
And they really soar.
And they soar. It's so wonderful. And then for certain students, that gap becomes wider, like Jenny said, and you really start to notice a difference. And then you start to think, wow, will this child be able to navigate their way through first grade? Is that fair for the child, especially if their birthday is in August and our cutoff is September 1st? Why wouldn't we give them the gift of time? What will happen with friendships then? We know how challenging that can be, right?
Yeah.
It was pretty incredible working with this family this year, because I was so proud of the family, because they really realized that it would benefit their child. Yeah.
It wasn't glaring, where we've had some students, and we'll get into that in just a moment, where it was like, oh,
Right.
they are not ready.
Right.
It's always tricky, that middle ground, where it's like, well, we'll see.
We'll see. But when we do give them the gift, it's always with wonderful success.
Some people are hesitant to give that gift of time because they're afraid their child might be bored.
Yeah, not a thing.
That is not going to happen.
Can we do
experience.
an episode on boredom?
Yes, we'll do an episode on boredom and what we've seen when.
What does it mean? What does it actually mean?
No, so they are not bored. I promise you, they're not going to be bored.
Well, also because in their development, they're experiencing it in a completely different way.
Yeah.
So, like a 5-year-old will experience what's in front of them in a different way that a 6-year-old will experience. Yes. They won't just sort of kind of learn it. They'll really learn it.
I've always been amazed with our students who are so ready, and you would say they're on the stronger side, socially, emotionally, physically, and academically, and the confidence that they exhibit. I've never seen them bored. They're just like, I got this. I can do this. Their shoulders are back. They're more attentive to the activities because they were ready. They were ready for the challenge, and they're not being crushed. So that's where I always say, I mean, first of all, I think all students are gifted in something. So I don't
agree.
like that word, oh, this child's so gifted, because I believe students of all kinds are gifted in things. If you want to look at the benchmarks and who's a stronger student in the class, they are never bored.
Never.
They're just confident and ready to go. And it's exciting to watch that child succeeding so well.
Right. So in this case, it was a big decision to make. It wasn't so obvious. We have some others that are pretty obvious from
So
day
I've
one.
had 2 that it was a lot of going back and forth, even though right away I knew, I'm like, they are not ready for this. This is a very challenging time. So the key signs were, as they would say, what is going on? What are we supposed to do? or they were wandering the room, going to the bathroom all the time, going to get a drink of water because it was just too much. So I had 2 Charlies, different years. The whole time I'm thinking they need this gift of time. And it wasn't just one area. And that's where it became very crystal clear. It was socially, they were struggling with their friendships. Emotionally, there was lots of tears or disengaging, kind of almost dazed and confused. And they're smart kids, believe me, they're very smart kids. Academically, I was scooping them up all day long. It was just too much. I was cutting things down like, okay, for you, let's just kind of get this part. I had to break down those tasks even more. And then just physically, they were just kind of getting their sea legs going, like playing a game, like running around. You could just see their little legs weren't quite where the other students were. Or physically, to pick up a writing tool, fine motor, they were just like, do I need to pick up this pencil? They just weren't ready. And so it was very crystal clear to me. And then it was working with the parents and convincing them.
Because I think one of those Charlies had a summer birthday, but the other one was a little bit older, right?
Turned 5 in March. And so they were 5.5 when they started kindergarten. And thankfully, the decision was made to have them start at 6.5 and do a second year of kindergarten. I did interview this little Charlie when he was in 3rd grade. And I said, hey, I just want to check in with you. How's it going? How are you feeling about the experience of being in my class 2 years? And he confidently and proudly said it was the best decision. I'm so happy in this class.
What grade is he in now?
He is in high school.
He's in high school.
I think they'd be going into their junior year.
Right.
Of high school.
A confident, I've seen him on campus.
Yeah.
And he's a confident, amazing student.
Yes. And the other one is in middle school.
Right.
And they were hesitant. They were very hesitant about having him do a second year in my class. I don't like the word repeat. So second year in my class. And they were not on board. But by the end of this second experience, we talked to them and they were much more understanding about what we were doing and why. And I remember his mom saying that he found his voice,
right?
And he found his place.
Wonderful.
And so as hard as it was, and it really was hard, especially when the parents they're like, you didn't really give us a choice. And I said, because we needed to. I was so sure that this child needed that second year.
Right. Please trust us.
Yes.
And as a parent, as a mom, I can speak to it because my older child stayed for the gift of time and went to public school for the first year. And I knew that they needed, and even knowing my child was very bright, but socially and emotionally, he was not ready. There was no way. Even knowing that, it's still a hard decision.
It's a very hard decision.
And it's something that is connected to your ego. So when we talk about seeing yourself in your child, you really have to put that aside. And this is not about your ego.
That is so true. When my oldest she's a June birthday. So I thought, she's right in the middle. Well, not anymore. And this was 25 years ago.
I remember. I taught her.
Right? Yeah. And I was going to say, when your son was in my class for year 2 of kindergarten, it was so perfectly set up for success for the second year in kindergarten. So I'm so grateful that I got that experience. For my daughter, she always remained one of the youngest in the class. She did fine, but there was always that lingering doubt. All 13 years of elementary, middle school, and high school, I was like, should she have had that second year? Did we start her too soon? And the amount of ringing and the amount of extra tutoring that needed to be in place for her to be successful. I know I wouldn't have done this, but it was kind of a little bit of like, she was always that, she's doing okay. So we kept her in that class. But knowing what I know now, the experience and the years I've had in kindergarten, 100% I would have had her.
Isn't that interesting?
Go for the second year.
No, and it's great information to have. I really hope that, the listeners that are listening to this really think about it because it's very, very important.
And just to add a little more confusion to all of it, we've had those students who they're on the younger end, the youngest in the class, and they've done just fine. They've done more than fine. Yeah. And they were ready for it. Developmentally, they were ready for the challenges of kindergarten and have gone on to do very well in school and in life. So
it's not a done deal.
No.
When your birthday is not a done deal. But, we'll talk about how to look for these things in a minute.
Yes. Okay. So we saw something recently as we're getting ready for the new school year by Jessica Stanford on Instagram. She had this brilliant kindergarten readiness slide. And I thought, I was nodding my head. I know you were too, Christine.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's a clear, simple, concise checklist. Is your child ready for kindergarten? Do you want to read them?
I would love to.
Okay.
So academics are not the priority. Independence is. Mm-hmm. Let them practice doing things by themselves. Teach them how to advocate for themselves. Social skills, taking turns, waiting patiently, sharing, using kind words. Model them for your children. Basic hygiene goes a long way. By the way, my son, when he got to preschool, he didn't even know how to wash his hands. Because I did it for him. Daily routines matter. Read to your children every day. It's okay if they don't know everything yet. Growth looks different for everyone. Kindergarten is for learning, and teachers meet kids where they are. Separation anxiety is normal. What helps are quick goodbyes and lots of encouragement. They feed off your energy. Talk positively about school and be calm on the first day. Trust the process, and they'll mirror your confidence.
So true. And that's what we're going to talk about in our upcoming episode is, transitioning the night before kindergarten.
Right.
There's a lot to it. And having good energy and being confident with the process.
Love it.
So
what do we think? What would we recommend to parents who are on the fence or who are thinking about that, or like, I'm just not sure? What would we say to those parents?
Well, I love this book and we recommend it to all our families. The book is by Chip Woods called Yardsticks. It looks at the ages and stages of development. I believe it starts at age 3
or 4.
3, I believe.
I think 3 also.
All the way to 14. And it is amazing how when I would review it, how I'm always going, you're right. And what I love in particular for kindergarten is it has younger 5s and older 5s because it's such a leap of growth and development.
And it breaks it down into the components that we talked about. And it also looks at the child in the classroom and at home.
Yes.
So what's the difference?
Because
it doesn't mirror. It's very different. Kids are holding it together in school. It looks different at home.
Totally. All right.
That's a good one. Yardsticks.
And be in close contact with your child's preschool teachers. If your child's in preschool, they're seeing things and they're advocates for your child as well. And they're seeing them in a group setting. You might even ask to observe your child in the preschool classroom to see how they are, not that we're comparing kids, but just to see how your child is in the classroom environment.
So the schools that you're looking at for your child in kindergarten, whether it's public school or independent school, those schools will have an educational philosophy and a mission. And there's, that also is important information to share with your preschool teacher, because if you said to the preschool teacher, oh, I'm going to this school, they'll be like, oh, that's great, because in public school, the cutoff is a little bit different. So it does make a difference. And the expectations are slightly different.
And there's a lot of different options. Yeah, there's the public, there's the charter, there's the parochial schools, independent school. I mean, there's a lot of, and people are investigating and trying out homeschooling as well. So really understand, where do you know your child best? And your family is going to be invested.
Yep.
So what is your own educational philosophy? And try to find and match, knowing that no school is absolutely perfect. They just aren't. But what best matches for your family?
And then once you have made a decision or have looked at a variety of schools, ask from guidance from that kindergarten program, like the admissions at that school. Say, is there a checklist? Is there a readiness guide that we need to follow?
Yeah.
Right? So just be in communication.
They'll probably really appreciate it because they'll understand, wow, this is a family that's invested in their child and they want to work with us, not against us. Observe your child in settings, whether it's a play date at a park or a birthday party.
Watch them.
They're so much different than they are one-on-one at home or with the family dynamic with siblings. So it's a very different.
Take that into account. And remember, above and beyond all else, you are the one who is your child's advocate. No one loves your child like you do. You guys know your children best.
And that's, again, not only as a parent, but as anyone that's interacting with your child, we're advocates for children. And again, we love those kids and we want what's best for them.
And we're looking broadly.
So, Christine, looking at big little lessons, what are our takeaways?
Yeah. I mean, actually, I just sort of said what a piece of my takeaway.
Yes.
Don't be confused by a child who seems ready academically. So if you're only focusing on the academic piece, but socially and emotionally they're not quite there, or physically they're not quite there, it will catch up to them and create challenges for them.
Yeah.
So the 4 components are critical. Same with social, flip it. So socially and emotionally, they're really savvy, but they're not quite getting the academics. And maybe there's something more to that, but just consider those things. Like just embrace that. Embrace those parts of who your child is and understand that it's not just in kindergarten. It will follow them.
Yes.
Like Jenny's daughter. It was catch up for a long time.
Uh-huh.
And now she's a successful adult, but it was not without some tears.
A lot of worry from my perspective. I don't know if Lindsay was as worried as I was, but I was like, am I doing the right thing? Because I love her so much and I'm her advocate and I wanted the very, very best for her.
By the way, I just want to go back to the Charlie that I was talking about at the beginning, because when the parents and I sat down with Charlie to tell her that she was staying back another year, she was thrilled.
Oh,
she was thrilled.
I'm so happy.
So I think that's a really good indicator.
Yes.
I mean, she wasn't saying, oh, my friends are going to leave me. I get to be in kindergarten again because that's where I belong.
Well, who doesn't want to be in your class? Come on. You're the best.
What's your big little lesson from today?
Mine is really understanding that working with a child one-to-one is very different than being in a classroom setting. When you think about a young child being in a classroom, they're taking in so much. There's their peers. There could be a class of 15 or up to 25, hopefully not more than 25. But having to navigate all the dynamics of the people in the room, having to take directions.
Follow transition. I mean,
yes, managing not only your emotions, but, understanding and following the rules and getting along. And it's a lot to take in. So sometimes parents would say, I don't see these behaviors at home. And I believe them. They don't see those behaviors at home because they're not in a classroom setting with all these other children. So really understanding your child can be very, very different one-to-one versus being in a classroom atmosphere. So when your child's teacher is saying something, take it in and try not to let the ego and the defensiveness come in. Really, you say, what can I do to help? And partner with that teacher because you both are on the same side. You want the very best for your child.
Yeah.
So that's my big.
That's
big
a great big little lesson because all of these things are critical.
Okay. So readiness isn't about perfection. It's about developmentally appropriate.
And also remember that every child blooms in their own time. There's actually a great book called Leo the Late Bloomer.
I love that book. Yes, read Leo the Late Bloomer. It's a classic. And thank you for joining us today.
Until next time on Big Little Lessons.